This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you. Funding for this program is provided by the Santa Rosa Island Authority, located on beautiful Pensacola Beach, Florida, featuring a wide variety of shopping and entertainment venues, fresh from the Gulf seafood, spectacular lodging, brilliant white sand beaches, and wildlife encounters. Pensacola Beach, waiting for you and your family to explore.
It's widely regarded as one of the best arts festivals in the United States. When the weather turns cool, hundreds of artists and thousands of visitors gather under stately oaks to enjoy an annual celebration of creativity. It's the Great Gulf Coast Arts Festival, and if you happen to find yourself in Pensacola's historic Seville Square, you'll discover it right in your own backyard.
In 1977, we had a little arts festival that was probably a pretty cool thing for Pensacola. There were a few out-of-town folks that came in, but we had a great committee who kept putting on a better and better and better festival, made it more and more appealing to the artists that came in from out of town. Over the years, we've gotten to where we have been in the top 50 United States for most of the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, something like that, which is just, you know, very great for the Pensacola area. And we have artists that are showing this show that have been here for 15, 20, 30 years. And when you have that kind of dedication, how can you argue with that?
Back in the early 1970s, the Great Gulf Coast began as an indoor show housed in the city's auditorium building. It soon moved outdoors, expanded, and ultimately found a picture-perfect setting under magnificent old oak trees in the Seville Historic District near the shore of Pensacola Bay.
Actually, park layout structures, the mulch on the ground starts Monday of the week. There are people down here on Tuesday that are putting electrical pieces up. Wednesday is pace picks up a little bit and more of the structure comes in, and then of course Thursday is when artists come in and set up.
It takes volunteers a lot of time and effort to temporarily transform the square into an artist colony. To help visitors navigate, street signs are placed along the sidewalks, bearing the names of famous artists. This way, visitors can tell their friends to meet them at Warhol Way or Dolly Drive.
We have Rodin, we have Matisse, we have Degas, we have Lewis. So there's a lot of artist names, and it just works. For the last several years, we've ranked within the top 50 of the art shows in the country. We get artists from as far away as California. We've had we get them from Minnesota. We get them from all up and down the eastern seaboard. It's a lot of folks from a lot of places.
I do festivals all over the United States, and I had heard that this was a very good festival to do, and it was a wonderful location to do one in. So I decided to give it a try, and so far it's been great.
This is a top-notch art festival on a national scale. The artists here are just a lot of very, very fine artists of all different mediums, and I feel very fortunate to be a part.
I heard about it from another artist several years back. It's relatively close to home. I grew up going to Pensacola all the time, so it was familiar territory. And it's a nice event.
It's a wonderful way to expose the work to masses of people. This show gets over 100,000 people over 3 days. These shows generate 600-700 applications for 200 plus openings. This is where the cream of the crop here. Every artist here is spectacular. I'm thrilled to be among this wonderfully talented group of people, and it's an honor just to be in that group.
When I travel around the country, people ask me, "Oh, what about that Pensacola show?" I say, it is truly one of the best run shows that I've done ever. and it continues to be. So it's a very cool experience.
Each year, the festival commissions an artist to do a poster for the Great Gulf Coast Arts Festival. It's then transferred onto mugs and t-shirts, and from year to year, they become quite the collector's items.
It's a huge impact to the community, especially from a financial perspective, and the impact that it has on the overall community. Putting heads in beds, the restaurants are, people are eating here, they're eating at our restaurants, they're staying in our hotels, they're looking at our area, they're driving around our area. This benefits everybody.
Each year, the Great Gulf Coast Arts Festival invites an artist from a different country to come and participate in the Great Gulf Coast Arts Festival. This year's artist is here from Italy, so it's a different country each year, and we're honored to have with us now Andrea Spinelli, and welcome.
Hello, thank you.
We're glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
I'd love to talk to you about your art just a little bit. If we could walk in and you could tell me, this just has the feeling of Italy when I look at it. Talk to me about your work.
Well, mostly I paint what I feel like that makes me feel good, What I feel like eventually will be liked also by other people. Since the beginning, I said, why not making it a profession? At the beginning, it was easy to sell. Now, times have changed a little bit because of the economic crisis, So it's a little bit more difficult, but I paint on commission, so I can still make it.
That's wonderful. So can you tell me where this actually was painted? Do you see this in your mind's eye, or do you actually go to a location and sit down?
Yeah, I used to go, when I was younger, I used to go on the spot and paint from there. Wherever I saw a nice view, I sit there and I painted. And now I paint a lot in the studio. I take pictures and I paint in the studio, change a little bit things, make it more romantic, and that's the result.
Well, they're all absolutely gorgeous, and we appreciate you being here in the Pensacola, Florida area and joining us for this show.
Thank you for having me here.
The festival is an explosion of the arts: sculpture, ceramics, painting, mixed media, jewelry, glass, photography, dance, and music.
I've been blue since you broke my heart in two. If you don't come back, I don't know what I'll do. If you wondered how I'd be if you said goodbye to me, I've been broken, I've been blue. It's been years since you wandered away, dear. How I pray that someday you
Another aspect of the festival is the heritage art, a whole row of crafters doing everything from weaving to pottery to all kinds of things, quilting, and in this case, we've got actual, what have we got here? Handmade wooden bowls?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is John?
John Sadler, yes, ma'am.
John Sadler, and you're here from Tennessee?
Yes, ma'am, God's country.
Oh, nice. Well, we hope you enjoy it here as well. Tell me what you're doing here and what your craft is.
Well, it's hollowing out, shaving the side of the rim of the bowl here. And this is a black walnut bowl, as you can see over here. And if I hold out long enough, it'll look just like that one in the middle right there.
That's beautiful. So now, can I use this for just anything in my home, or is it more decorative or useful?
It's mainly decorative, but I put a finish on it to where you can't put food in it. But I tell folk when they buy them, they won't know if they can put salad in them. I said, yeah, but I wouldn't buy a Mercedes and haul hay in it,
That's your art, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, how long have you been doing this?
Well, too long. No, about somewhere around 30 years, I guess, but not all together, off and on. But,
how much time does each bowl take you, typically?
Well, that's hard to say. I don't really rightly know on that because I'll go over it so many different times over a period of about 6 months. And as a matter of fact, I go over it about 34 to 36 different times over that, and I never have really timed it, you know, to see how long it takes.
And then you have somebody like me interrupt you when you're trying to do your work and get you to tell me about it.
Yeah, I get a neighbor drops in every now and then, you know.
Yeah, same thing, right?
Yeah, I used to dread that when I was plumbing and making bowls too. A neighbor would come in, I said, oh, here comes somebody that's going to hinder me, you know. But now I'm glad to see them.
Now you're having fun.
I need a break on it now.
We're so glad you're here. Enjoy your time here, John, and have a great show.
Well, I sure appreciate that.
Thank you.
We're Bruce and Joanne Bird from Milton, Florida. We have had generations of our family who recycle things and make things out of it.
To do the cutting and turning about 15-20 minutes. I cut the tire on the rim. Flip it over, lay my pattern down, mark it, and then take my knife and cut this part out. We don't lose any tire. I take this and then sit it on a post about this tall, and then I take and fold all of this part down. And then whatever flip it gets, that's what ends up here. I remembered my grandfather making this style of planter out of truck tires. And he would turn a big old truck tire inside out, cut it like this, and throw it out in the yard so my grandmother could have a flower bed, a whole flower bed, because the tire was so big. And that's how we come up doing this. Just took it a step further.
I'm here now with Tony Krasinski. He's a local artist and he also travels around quite a bit. Glad to see you this morning.
Great to be here.
Now I want to talk to you personally about this. Seems to be some type of a carving into a wood that you have then followed up with paint. How did you realize, hey, I'm good at carving wood and painting it, and now I'm in this big art show? I mean, how do you get there?
Well, I've been painting and drawing my whole life, really. And when I came up with this specific medium, which is about 15 years ago or so, I was actually working as a computer graphics designer. So I was every day sitting at a computer designing on the flat screen. And it was a lot of fun. It was sort of a groundbreaking type of thing for me to do, because up until the mid-'80s I had never had anything to do with computers. But after about 10 years of that or so, I started craving the tactile sense of materials. So I basically got in the garage and started fooling around with things I had laying around, which was some old carving tools as well as paints and wood, etc. I started building some furniture and doing some of these pieces, and it sort of went from there. I actually did the first piece like this for my wife for a Christmas present. Here it is 15 years later, and yeah, I never thought I'd be making a living at it, but here I am.
Do you get a lot of inspiration from this area in your work?
Well, I've lived in Florida my entire adult life, so basically, there's a lot of Florida critters and the like that are in the pieces. The inspiration comes from all over the place, but certainly from being on the beach for most of my life is a large part of that. Yeah, and like I said, it's there's no paycheck at the end of the week. It's definitely a crapshoot, and you truthfully putting it all out there on the line. This is what I do. Do you like it enough to take it home with you? Unfortunately, here I am 15 years later and people are still taking it home and liking it. So it's doing the job, and we're loving the life.
Paul Schatz joins us from Charleston, South Carolina.
Yes, I am.
Visiting artist.
I am.
Have you been here before?
I have. This is, I believe, my 4th straight year.
Really? Well, your work is so beautiful. I know it's a juried show, so you have to be...
Have to be selected, yes.
Right, and so that must feel good 4 years in a row.
Yes, it's very competitive, and anytime you get selected to a jury show, it's quite an honor.
We're standing here under a beautiful old oak tree. This must invoke feelings of South Carolina as well.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite settings for an art festival. You can see by the work that I do that I'm very much into the natural environment and very heavily in favor of large trees for my subject matter. Hansel Adams has always been an inspiration for me. I think the greatest inspiration he has given me is his way that he used his art form to inspire conservation and preservation in the natural environment. As far as an artist goes, obviously I always loved his work. I wanted to do something that Ansel had never done, which was take the art form to a whole new level and transcend looking at a photograph to actually experiencing the subject. So that's why I make very large photographs. I still make them by hand in the darkroom. They're silver gelatin originals from very large format film. I don't feel connected to the computer. I use it in my business, but as an artist, I feel much more connected to the darkroom experience.
Tell me about what you hear people say when they look at your art.
Well, when people look at my art, quite often what they talk about is the black and white, the elegance to it, the traditional feel of it. They talk about the depth of it, which that is a result of the wide-angle lenses I use and the silver gelatin paper that I use. They talk about how they can actually feel like they're there, and that's really what I'm trying to accomplish. I don't want them to see a photograph of where I was. I want them to actually feel what I felt. Quite a lot of my work has been in the Carolinas, which is where I live, but I did a whole series of shoots in the north this last year. So I have stuff from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, Maine, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, New York State, Wisconsin. So this is a whole new body of work that I'm coming out with. If a black and white photograph is done well and it's printed well, there are more tones of blacks, whites, and grays than there are colors in the spectrum.
Certainly gorgeous. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I'm Jim Copeland. I'm a photographer from Atlanta, and as you can see, I predominantly shoot flowers, and I'm a studio still life photographer. I've done that my entire career. In fact, my college major was photographic illustration. And my whole thing is that I like to gather up the props, bring everything to the studio, and create my images in the studio. Most of my images, as you'll see, like these, I actually built a pool in the studio, brought the rocks in, filled the pool with water, arranged the rocks the way I wanted them to, and then brought in the flower. I usually spend somewhere about a day in the studio to create the image. And I do that in order to get the composition that I like, and in order to get the lighting that I like. And then after I have the image created, then I come into Photoshop with the image, and I spend about a day in Photoshop to create the file that I make the print from. But as you can see then, I take the image and I make the foreground print, and I hand tear the edge of the paper, and then I take the same image and I enlarge it and I print it out of focus for the background. And then I take the two prints and I sandwich them together with a spacer between them, and so where this front image floats above the background, and then it creates a little drop shadow around it from the natural lighting in the room. The artist, that's the big thing we do. We all talk to one another, find out what are good shows, what's good for them, what's good for us, so we trade information about that. So that's how you hear about, where the good shows are to do. And it's a lot of fun. I've been able to travel around the country, see a lot of wonderful things, and meet a lot of great people, and go to a lot of cities that I've never been to before. It's a lot of fun.
Every time you do a show, you'll meet somebody and it'll click and you'll make a friend. So I've got several people here who I've known for a couple of years, and we might only see each other once or twice a year, maybe every 3 years we'll run into each other. But you're artist, you have this kind of bond because of what you do and how you do it. I'm a kinetic sculptor, so I'm working with a medium so that the intent is to create a motion, almost something that's living within that piece. The kinetic is that it's moving off of its own inertia, so once you start it, the reason it keeps going is because it's got its own weighting system to it. So, this piece is about 35 pounds, but the balance point to it is about an ounce. So that if I shift, if I take this guy and shift him up, he may flip completely over. So his balance is just that sensitive. The advantages for me is that you're working in 3 dimensions. You're actually creating a physical being. And you get to interact with it. So, if you have a painting on the wall, you can view it and enjoy it, you can tell stories about it. With kinetic art, you're actually creating stories with it. This is aluminum, so the metal with kind of a whiter tone to it will be aluminum, the bluer tone will be stainless, which are these heavy rotting elements, and these larger ones here. But the wing itself is out of copper. And it's a unique process because I'm using textures and heat. So all those colors It is the copper. It's not a chemical on top of it. It's actually the copper that you can transform into those colors, just with different textures and using the torches to heat it. So it's playing with the natural element. I'm not adding anything to it. I'm developing a natural element.
Margaret Biggs is a fine artist, oil on canvas, and we're in her booth right now. And Margaret, it's so good to see you.
It's nice to see you.
Tell me about what you do.
Well, I paint modern realism depicting the beauty of the Gulf South. I am a native of the area, was gone for a long time and came back, and since my return I've focused solely on the beauty of the Gulf South. I want to honor it and hopefully raise awareness of the beauty here.
I'm looking behind us right now, and there's, I know what your inspiration is, but let's talk to people about where this came from.
Well, this is, once again, it could be anywhere along the Emerald Coast, all the way to Mississippi, but this in particular for people from the area, this is the end of Santa Rosa Island. This is Fort Pickens, the very tip of the island. And this is the pass. So that's where the Navy base. And I painted this. My work is very modern and yet realistic. I stylize. And in this piece in particular, I was focusing on the light refractions on the Gulf floor. It's called Swim With Me. And I was trying to put the viewer in the water so you felt like you were swimming in the water. And I was trying to get the viewer to be completely a part of the piece, to feel that you were in the water, to put the water around you. And it's also a study in design.
Do you think more and more people are starting to realize what a great place this is?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. It is a gem, and I'm fortunate enough to have traveled extensively, and I think I know very well what a beautiful little corner of the world that we have here. Pensacola is a charming town. This is a fabulous art festival.
Of course, you can work up quite an appetite gazing and grazing with all the fine art. And there are lots of great restaurants that line Seville Square. But what would a festival be without lots of festival food? I'm going to find the fried rice.
Well, my name is Russell Grace. I'm from Tallahassee, and I quit my job as a city planner in 1997 and decided to do this full time. I decided to open up a kiosk in the mall in Tallahassee, and it worked out great. And then I opened up a full gallery where I did custom framing, and I've been doing that for the last 15 years. I've really got three types of photography here. I've got photography that I used film for, and that I still use. I have a panoramic camera, and I get one long frame of a negative that I can get spectacularly sharp prints from. I try to photograph areas that people recognize, where they've had special moments from, the lighthouses, beaches, areas that they're familiar with. And the panoramic format is just a wonderful way to capture that. These two images here are among my best sellers. Again, the wide branches with the resurrection ferns lends itself very well to the panoramic format. The old trucks, it's a landmark for people in Tallahassee that go down to the coast. Again, the panoramic format just captures these scenes beautifully. The other kind of photography I have is digital, and it's a spectacularly new form of photography where you can get so much out of an image. Taking the image is just a first step. To spend hours on it in the computer and taking advantage of the recent versions of Photoshop, it's like you're painting the picture just with the computer. The other area of photography that I just started with is infrared photography, and I'm lucky enough to have one of my infrared images right here selected for judging, which means not only am I honored to be in this show to begin with, but to have a piece selected for judging, potentially winning an award, a judge's award, is an extreme honor, and I'm so pleased that I've reached that level.
You don't have to travel to New York or to Washington or to Georgia or any place. It's going to come right here, and they're going to be right in your backyard, and you can just talk to them and walk around, and they can tell you about their art and explain it all to you. It's a wonderful experience.
It's more than just an art show. It's like you say, a homecoming. It's a social thing. The social part of it is, to me, as attractive as the art. It's a happening. It's my favorite weekend of the whole year. I always look forward to it because, like I said, I know I'm going to see old friends and I'm going to see a lot of beautiful art.
Anybody that has any enjoyment of any type of art, it's here. We have, I think, 10 categories, and in those categories, you got subcategories. If you can't find something artsy here and like it, you're having a bad day. If all we had to do in life was do X's and O's, 1 + 1 = 2, and make sure your English is as good as you can make it, we wouldn't have a very good life.
Pensacola loves the arts, period, and everybody on the Gulf Coast supports this art show. And people come here with an attitude that it's art. They know it's art, it's not just a festival, and they're excited about it. They take Friday off in order to come to this show. They're happy, you know, the weather's perfect. So yeah, it's a great show. It's the best show.
You've got a little piece of everything here, and it all works for us to have one of the best art shows in the United States of America. And it's so great that Pensacola gets to have this and showcase this, and people want to come here and visit and maybe come back here and live.
The Great Gulf Coast Arts Festival takes place in Pensacola's Seville Square on the first weekend in November of each year. From Interstate 10, take I-110 south to the Garden Street exit, then turn left and look for parking in the area a few blocks south of Garden. From US Highway 98, turn south on Alkanese Street and travel 4 blocks south to Seville Square. We hope you've enjoyed this look at the Gulf Coast's annual celebration of the visual and lively arts. We'll see you again next time, right in your own backyard.